You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. It's that time again. It is time for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the Options Insider Radio Network, where we explore everything going on outside of our traditional stomping grounds of your Teslas and your Apple and your SPY and your zero DTE SPX options. Look a little bit further afield, see what's going on out there in the Bitcoin and ETH and Solana and all sorts of fun crypto derivatives happenings. Going to look at the volume, the volatility, the OI, the SKEW, and a whole bunch more. What are the top positions? What are folks trading out there? Let's find out together. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever scintillating, ever compelling Options Insider Radio Network. Reminding you, if you want to go above and beyond, you like what you hear and you want even more in your lives, who can blame you? You really want to check out our pro Q&As. We have a lot of great guests coming in from the world of crypto in that hot seat all the time. So if you have questions about crypto and crypto derivatives and how all this stuff should work together and fit into your portfolio, what you should be looking at right now, all sorts of that kind of stuff, our pro Q&As are the place to go, as well as, of course, Options Oddities at the end of the week, live access to this, everything else we do throughout the week, and, of course, all the great stuff we've already done over there on the exclusive pro podcast feed, which is hundreds of hours worth of content in and of itself right now. And on top of that, we just gave away our pro trading crate, I think it was, to Pete05. So congratulations to him. You want to get your name entered into the hat and all the other cool stuff we're talking about, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go, listeners. As we go on into our first segment, it is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. Yes, we're talking about the old BTC. And coming into showtime, it's a little bit bigger than it was this time last week, but not a ton. Kind of treading water for the most part. On the end of our last show, it was 22,727. Coming into today's show, a little bit north, just a tick north of the 23K level, 23,018 to be precise. It puts it up about 290 handles from where it was this time last week. Had a little bit of a range in between. We got as high since our last show as a little bit north of 24,000, 24,199 to be precise. So a little over 1,000 handles higher than we are right now. Obviously gave that back up. The low came on Sunday, 22,778. So had an interesting range, but we ended up pretty much not that far away from where we were this time a week ago. That means if Bitcoin's mostly treading water, that means vol is kind of treading water out there right now as well. By the way, of course, you want access to this, everything else we're talking about here on the show from a vol perspective, OI, SKEW, what are the hot trades? What's trading right now? I mean, we really just scratched the surface of what kind of analytics they're throwing at you over there. You got to find it. Amberdata.io, AMBERDATA.io is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires out there, listeners. If you are intrigued by this marketplace, it is literally the only place in town to go to find all this data. So check it out, amberdata.io, the place to go as we keep on rolling, checking out the vol out there right now, which if you have the Amber Data subscription, you would know is pretty much unched on the week, right around 52 and a quarter. So off slightly, off a quarter of a point. It was 52 and a half last week. So a whole heck of a lot of nothing on the vol front this week. Same thing happening pretty much for the SKEW. We said last week the SKEW had swung to pretty much flat. That meant the options market didn't really have a strong bias in either direction from a SKEW perspective. And that's pretty much the case again right now. It was a positive 0.7 last week, this week a negative 0.5. So still kind of vacillating around flat. What does that mean if you're new to the options and SKEW world? You don't know what the hell we're talking about. That's effectively the volatility of the 25 delta put and the volatility of the 25 delta call, and what you're seeing in terms of comparing and contrasting if there's a premium in one direction or the other. Right now, the fact that they're about equidistant means there really isn't a premium. If you go and look at, let's say, the equity markets right now, the equity options, SPX, SPY, pick your poison out there. You're going to see a volatility premium to the puts and a discount to the calls. If you go to some of the commodity markets out there, you're going to see the reverse of that. You're going to see a premium to the calls, a discount to the puts. Bitcoin doesn't have either. Bitcoin is just flat. It's kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop out there, kind of like the rest of the market, it seems like right now. So no market bias out there. And if you don't know what the hell any of it means, if it's all Greek to you, then you should be subscribed to the full network so you could check out some of our educational shows like Options Bootcamp and Options Playbook Radio. They will help you understand terms like SKEW and volatility and all the other things we were just talking about there in a lot more detail, as well as, of course, all the other fun content we have there on the network. So if you're ever listening to the Crypto Rundown, make sure you're listening to the full network. Just search for Options Insider Radio Network on your platform of choice. Grab the full network feed. You'll be off to the races. Let's see if volume's off to the races this week. And at least from an OI perspective, not a heck of a lot of change on the week. Over there on Deribit, which is still the big dog out there from a crypto derivatives perspective, even though I know for a lot of you here in the U.S., kind of challenging to trade on Deribit. But coming into the show this week, we're seeing about 5,000 more calls on the tape on Deribit. So you're talking 186,000 versus 181,000 last week. And the puts almost literally on 76,000 last week, 76,000 and change this week as well. So again, not a huge evolution week on week. Vol kind of hanging out, Bitcoin kind of hanging out, SKEW kind of hanging out, and OI kind of hanging out this week. So everyone's kind of waiting. We had Powell really throwing a lot of wrenches into the markets last week with his comments. We saw huge rallies as a result. They kind of took a lot of people by surprise. Bitcoin and crypto as a whole kind of had already had a bit of a rally, so they didn't really participate as aggressively. Some folks are looking for that high degree of correlation. Over the last week and change, we haven't really seen that. The market selling off today. We're not really seeing Bitcoin selling off aggressively today either. So Bitcoin kind of treading water right now. Of course, you've listened to our recent shows with guests like Mr. Bill out there. He's been very optimistic, very bullish on the outlook for Bitcoin and indeed for all crypto out there. So perhaps this is just a resting point here, a bit of a respite. But either way, kind of a bit of a treading water week. Let's see if we had any evolution in terms of the top positions out there in Bitcoin. What are you folks trading? What are the size positions out there in Bitcoin options right now? Let's find out. Let's head on over to the top 5 positions out there. Number 5 this week, listeners, is the 24,000 strike. That is, in fact, we have a weird tie. The bottom half, effectively, of our top 5 is all tied at about 14,000 contracts each. So kind of lump them all together. But number 5, such as it is the 24,000 strike. That has 14,000 contracts open. That is down 1,000 from this time last week. Tied with that, we have the 28,000 strike, also with 14,000 contracts open. So that's also pretty much down slightly, down about 500 contracts. And then we have the 26,000 strike sneaking in there as well, also with 14,000 contracts. That is a newcomer to our top 5 this week. So we got a 3-way battle at the bottom there for the 14,000 volume level on 3 different strikes, 24,000, 28,000, and 26,000. So again, very relevant strikes compared to where we're hanging out right now in Bitcoin, which, like I said, was at about 23,000 and change. So we could easily see 24,000 coming. We hit it not too long ago. 26 certainly, and maybe even 28. Bit of a reach where we could get there. So intriguing stuff out there. Then right behind it, we have number 2, the 23,000 strike that has 16,600 contracts open. That's down about 900 on the week. And the big dog, once again, fighting its way back into the top spot. It got kicked to the curb after the end of last year. All the OI kind of went away. But folks are piling in again to the 30,000 strike out there, listeners. That is where the action is. 18,500 contracts open there. That's up about 1,500 contracts in this time last week. So the rest of the strikes kind of vacillating, a little bit of adding, a little bit of subtracting, but folks starting to pile back into the 30K strike. Is that you? Are you feeling that little bit of optimism? Maybe they're overriding a little bit as well. So obviously new OI doesn't just mean buying. In the Bitcoin space, that tends to be the case, but not all the time. So intriguing stuff out here. We'll see if 30,000 can once again become the lightning rod of paper that it was back in the past out there, and more folks will be piling in to all things Bitcoin. In terms of action, what did we see over the course of the past week? How much action? Well, the busiest day we saw was the first with about 73,000 contracts. So that was last Wednesday when I said last week that we were kind of flirting with the highs, a little bit north of 24,000. That apparently ginned up a little bit of paper out there. Again, 73,000 contracts, a little bit better than the week before. We had about 49,000 contracts on the tape. But again, we've seen more out there in the Bitcoin space. Don't even get me started on the madness that was the FTX period where we saw 113,000 contracts on the tape. So not quite that, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. Let's see if we can find anything intriguing out there in CME land. You know, they started to see a little bit of action percolating on the Bitcoin front as a result of this recent rally out there. And that's the case again today. Again, this is the contract. I hate to keep harping on this, but this used to do 10, 20 contracts a week. It's done 278 already today. So looks like the big dog out there, listeners, today, 100 of the March 32,000 calls. It's like maybe a 1x2, the 30,000, 32,000 vertical going up 50 by 100 times. Either way, those are the big dog. That's 150 of our 278 contracts. Also have 51 of the 34,000 calls in February going up today as well. Let's look at last week to see if we had any interesting paper on the tape last week. And the answer was, yeah, actually the number of the beast, 666. So a little bit lighter than we've seen in recent weeks. We've gotten up over 1,000, but still nothing to sneeze at out in this contract. Last week, the big dog out here were the 19,000 puts doing 116 contracts. These were in March as well. So March, clearly where the action is. That kind of dovetails with what we've seen in the past. Crypto across the board, I don't care if it's ETH or Bitcoin or whatever it is. They like a good quarterly. ETH really loves it, but Bitcoin, they like themselves a good quarterly out there as well. That's probably why we're seeing so much action out there in March. Let's look really quickly on the micro side, see if you folks on the retail front are starting to pile in to the action this week. And the answer so far is no today. 56 contracts on the tape today. And in terms of paper from last week, we had 235. So still kind of quiet out there on the CME front, but maybe we'll see if those are start kicking into gear. Speaking of kicking into gear, Bitto ticking back up a little bit since our last show. It was at about a 1430. It was actually at a 14 and a half a couple of weeks ago. Ticked down about 1430 on our show last week. This week back up to about 14 and a half. So kind of doing a whole heck of a lot of nothing over the last couple of weeks. The ADV climbing ever so slowly as well, back up to 71,000, up a whopping 1,000 from this time last week. The vol, though, coming in quite a bit, which is interesting. A little bit of a diversion from what we're seeing out there on the derivative options side. The vol down about 7 points to about a 51. So that's kind of interesting out there. A little bit of a disassociation between BITO and your old spot Bitcoin, which the vol is kind of treading water. Well, let's see what the top positions are out there in BITO options. And you know what? It's still the same as last week in terms of breakdown. 5 calls versus 5 puts in the top 10. That is kind of interesting. Again, kind of reflecting what we're seeing out there across the board in BITO. I don't care where you're looking. And maybe CME, if you're looking at Deribit, if you're looking at BITO, there seems to be a heck of a lot of. We're not sure where we're going here. There is action more, like I said, on the 30,000 strike. That is the number one size position on Deribit right now. But outside of that, I'm looking at the top 10 here in BITO, and it's kind of all over the place. On number 10, we have 9,000 of the Jan 2024. So next year, 15 calls. That's an intriguing one. Number 9, about 10,000 of the March 11 puts. Number 8, 10,000 as well of the Feb 21s. Number 7, 12,000 of the June 10s. The 10 put strike and the 10 puts in general, they were the hot strike, the hot contract going into the end of the year. That was where all the size open interest was. As we've obviously moved away from the 10 strike, a lot of people have moved away from it, it seems like, as well. Only one 10 strike option in the top 10 here, and is the June 10 puts. So they've been hanging out there for a while with about 12,000. 12,000 as well for number 6 of the Jan 25s. Number 5, about 13, almost 14,000 of the March 9 puts. Number 4, almost 14,000 as well of the June 20 calls. That's interesting. Number 3, we've got 16,500 of the June 5 puts. And then number 2, 17,000 of the March 14s. And the number one size position yet again in BITO options are the end of month. So these are special options and not just the traditional Junes, which expire on the 16th. These expire on the 30th, listeners. The June expiring on the 30th, 8 puts. There are 25,000 of those open. That's been dominating the tape in BITO for a while. That's kind of intriguing, actually, in terms of what's going on out there. These have usurped the 10 strike, but it is a strange strike to see out there in terms of dominating the top position, and it has been for some time. We mentioned on the show in the past, these were opened back on December 27th. We saw 40,000 of them trading that day. Looks like a big block of nearly 10,000 of them traded for paper, selling those for about $1.10. They traded up to about $1.15. It seems like they printed it a bunch, actually $1.16. So they printed a bunch of different ranges. It seems like paper was selling those though. So intriguing. You like that, listeners? You like selling the BITO 8 puts for $1.15 or so? I mean, we're at 14.5, so the 8 put would certainly be getting down there. You got to go all the way out to June to do it, but intriguing stuff nonetheless as we keep going on all the way out into the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the show where we explore everything outside of the big dog, which is Bitcoin, except for right now, where we're going to talk about the top 10 from a market cap perspective. Obviously hard to dodge Bitcoin in that conversation. Speaking of dodging, good old Doge, actually not number 10, hanging out number 9 this week. Number 10 is Polygon, 10.7 billion. That's what it cost you to break into the top 10. So again, that reflects the overall rising tide lifting all boats in the crypto space. We were back below 8 billion not too long ago to break into the top 10. These days closing in on 11 billion, 10.7 billion. So nothing to sneeze at out there. Number 9 is Doge, hanging out at about 12.25 billion. Number 8, it is Cardano, 13.6 billion. Number 7, Binance USD, 16.2 billion. Number 6, XRP, almost 20.5 billion. When are we going to get some resolution on that one, listeners? Who knows? It seems like it's been imminent for quite some time. So I've given up waiting. We'll see. We'll know when it happens, obviously. Either XRP is going to shoot to the moon or going to fall out of bed, one or the other. Then number 5, like I said, USD coin, 41, almost 42 billion. Huge jump between 6 and 5, as there usually is. Number 4, BNB, 51, almost 52 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, 68 billion. Numero 2, it's ETH, 202 billion. And number 1, with the bullet this week, it is Bitcoin, 444 billion worth of market cap. ETH, looking a little bit more robust this week. It was 1550 on the show last week. Coming into this show, just a tick under 100 handles north of this week. 1645 this week, so you're up about 94, almost 95 handles on the week. We got a little bit higher on Thursday last week, 1702 to be precise. So we just kissed 1700. Then we fell out of bed back down to, it's actually the lowest pretty much on our show last week of about 15 and a half out there. So intriguing stuff from a ETH perspective. Is this it? Is ETH kicking into high gear here, listeners? Are we rolling back along? I guess we'll find out. Let's see what the options are telling us out there. Vol-wise, looking a little bit frothier this week. So departing from Bitcoin a bit, where Bitcoin vol kind of eroding or treading water. ETH vol ticking up a bit, getting up to almost a 65. It was a 60 even on the show last week. This week, about a 64.8. So ticking up almost 5 points. Again, you're flirting with that 17,000 level. Bitcoin, ETH, all these major crypto assets, they tend to have a little bit of that upside bias to them when they start popping. It's kind of like the inverse of what we see in the equities, listeners. Equity markets start selling off, vol usually tends to increase. Crypto markets have a little bit of that commodity flavor. They used to be, back in the day, they all used to be tremendously call bias from a SKEW perspective. That kind of went away last year. Starting to fight in. We see a lot of the major crypto assets are hanging out around flat now. You start popping up to some psychologically interesting levels like 1,700, for example, and you might see a little bit of that vol start creeping back in. That's kind of what we saw over the course of the past week. SKEW-wise, weirdly enough, though, getting more negative again. So maybe once we got up to that 1,700 level, couldn't maintain it, started drifting lower. Not much lower, about 50 handles lower, but still. Once you started drifting lower, maybe that caused some folks to start piling into some puts again. Either way, not a ton, but a little bit more negative. It was -2 on the show last week, -4 this week. So again, that means you're talking pretty much a premium of about 4 vol points for the 25 delta puts over the 25 delta calls out there in ETH options right now. Speaking of ETH options, let's see what is open out there. How are we looking from an OI perspective? We're seeing both wings, the call and the put wing, increasing this week. The call wing up not much, about 70,000 contracts, puts it up about 2.37 million open right now on Deribit from an ETH options perspective. The puts up about 35,000. So 2-to-1 pretty much exactly, calls increasing this week. 690,000 puts open. That still puts us net on the OI front, roughly not quite 4-to-1, about 3.5-to-1 out there. So intriguing stuff out there nonetheless. But again, very call biased as we've seen in the past out there in ETH land. ETH was hanging out at 4-to-1 calls over puts for most of last year. We're starting to threaten that level again out there after we saw so many calls fall off the board at the end of the year with expiration. Starting to see those levels perk up again. Let's see what's perking up from a size positions perspective. What do you folks have open? What are the size positions in ETH options right now? Let's find out. Number 5, it is the 2,000 strike. Remember I said we're hanging out just a wee bit shy of 1,700 right now, about a 1,645. So the 2,000 strike hanging out at number 5, 166,000 contracts open. That is a newcomer to our top 5 this week. So folks slotting into the 2,000 strike. Then as ETH is wont to do, we get a little wonky. We get a little outlandish. You go up to the 3,500 strike. So a lot of distance to cover between 2,000 and 3,500, yet here they are neck and neck. Number 4, the 3,500 strike, 173,000 contracts open there. That's up about 1,000 this week. It's not a huge move there, but enough to maintain a spot in the top 5 this week. Number 3, we have the 1,600 strike. So now we're back to a more reasonable at the money type strike. 206,000 contracts open there. That one's up 24,000. That's not surprising. At the money strike, we expect to see some OI piling in there. Number 2, we have the 1,800 strike. So starting to flirt with it when we hit 1,700 last week. Then we retreated off it, but it was enough for the number 2 spot this week. 239,000 contracts open there. That's up about 17,000. And the big dog yet again this week, the 4,000 strike. So if 3,500 wasn't optimistic enough for you, wasn't out of the money enough for you, call it what you will. I present to you the 4,000 strike, 242,500 contracts open. Actually ticking up a little bit this week, up about 2,500. We've seen that one kind of treading water, but it's just so much OI left there from last year that has kind of just been holding on to the number 1 spot this week. Actually ticking up a little bit of new OI. Not much. It's not 25,000 or anything, but 2,500. It's enough to help it maintain its death grip because the 1,800 strike popping up in the rearview mirror there, only a few thousand contracts separating it, but that's enough to hold on to the number 1 spot this week, the 4,000 strike. In terms of action, what did we see this past week? Decent paper. I got to imagine that run up to 1,700 had a little bit to do with that. We saw about 393,000 contracts going up back on the 1st, which is close to where we hit the high. We hit the high actually on the 2nd, the day later, but still intriguing stuff nonetheless. Let's see if things are intriguing out there on the CME front from an ETH perspective. Let's go to the big ETH contracts first. Remember, this is another ridiculous multiplier option, 50 ETH listeners. So not exactly for the mere mortals out there, but for the big funds, it's intriguing. It looks like it's intriguing today, or indeed last week, I should say. 320 contracts going up last week. Not lighting the world on fire, but it's not nothing either. The big dog, 70 of the 1,800 calls in February. So intriguing. And in terms of today, I'm going to guess not a heck of a lot of paper lighting it up, and we shall see. Actually, 56 already have gone up today. So a little bit of action out there today. Let's see what's going on out here today. We have the 12 half calls going up 21 times today, and then the 1800s going up 25 times today. If that's a vertical, that's a weird one, and the numbers don't line up. Then we got some scattered paper on the 1900s and the 1600s as well as a one lot of the 1600 puts. Intriguing stuff out there. Let's check on the micros really quickly. I know for a lot of you, that's a more palatable contract out there. A micro ether last week doing 553 contracts, the big dog. Actually, the 5,000 calls in June. Wow. They went up 250 times straight up, all opening, no vertical, nothing else. 250 times. The 5,000 calls. What do you think, listeners? Can we get to 5,000 by June? That would probably make a lot of you happy if we were to flirt at those levels. How about something a little bit more reasonable? How about the 16 halves going up 201 times in March? That's pretty much where we're hanging out right now. That one makes a little bit more sense than perhaps the 5,000s, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. So a little bit of paper on the tape. This is all paper going up here today. I thought this was last week, but this was today. If you go out to last week, this is such a weird contract. Last week it did 74 contracts. This week already 554 on the tape today. I've said it before. This micro ETH contract has got a very staccato pattern to its volume. Does nothing, then it hits a whole bunch and does nothing again like today. We've seen 550 contracts going up all of last week. Not an inconsequential week. Look at what we just talked about with the rest of the ETH and 74 contracts. So sometimes it's challenging to make hide or hear what's going on out there on the CME contracts, but we'll keep an eye on them as we keep on rolling. We'll also keep an eye on Solana. Dropping a little bit this week after having quite the run, got down to sub $10 during the post-FTX debacle. More than 2x that now. 23.5 on our show last week, 23.30 last week, down about 18 cents. We have a poll live right now. We'll kind of look at the results of that. We'll get to that a little bit later in the crypto questions. I'm kind of intrigued. Are you folks back in on Solana? Are you intrigued by it? Should we start bringing it back into the rotation? I mean, it's certainly a better case for options to be made when it's north of $20 than when it's sub $10. Intriguing stuff. Kind of want to hear from you folks on that one. XRP, 39.3 cents last week, 40.2 cents this week. So up almost a cent. Not a heck of a lot going on, like we said. A lot of treading water going on out there. Doge getting a bit of a lift this week, 8.7 cents last week, 9.2 cents this week. And we got Litecoin taking a nice pop this week, 90.25 last week, 97.75 this week, up 7.5 handles this week. So nice little pop for Litecoin. Cardano up about 2 cents, 37.2 cents last week, 39.2 cents this week. Polkadot, same deal, 6.16 last week, 6.68 this week's up about 52 cents. And everyone's favorite, the Shiba Lambo, is actually looking a little bit richer this week. 0.000011 last week. This week, a whopping 0.000014.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, let's get to it. Our question of the week this week is aimed squarely at you crypto folks. So if you're not following us over there at Options, what the heck are you doing? First off, you're missing out on just tons of content that comes out throughout the week. Just about every day, we have a ton of great links to articles and news stories, of course, links to shows we have there, as well as surveys and questions that you folks can participate on out there. So you get a good sense of what's going on in the world of options. And indeed, on the crypto front this week, our question is aimed squarely at you folks. Like I said, if you had to buy a 10% out of the money call expiring at the end of the year on one of the following crypto assets, which one would you pick? Gave you the three majors out here, Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana, at least from an options perspective. Those are the three we have analyzed the most on the show here. Of course, gave you a fourth option as well for the naysayers out there. Didn't want them to feel left out. Saying, I'm done with crypto. Just went live right before showtime. We have Bitcoin and I'm done with crypto. Both tied at exactly a third of the vote. That's kind of interesting. And then bring up number 2 is actually Solana, 22.2%. So some love for Solana, which is surprising. Maybe we need to put it back on the show if you folks are liking it. And then bringing up the rear is ETH. No love for ETH. Only 11.1% of you folks choosing ETH. Again, this just went live right before showtime. So these are just the early numbers. We expect to see these evolve. If you want to participate in this, make your voice heard. Get over there at Options is the place to go. All right, that is going to do it for the Crypto Rundown this week. Another Just the Facts, ma'am, edition. Kind of treading water in a lot of the major assets, waiting for maybe the next shoe to drop or the next big move. What do you folks think? First off, vote in our poll. We want to hear from you. Which of these assets you're looking at, you're trading, are you washing your hands of this stuff right now? We also said write-ins are welcome. So if you have an altcoin, our guest, Mr. Bill, last week, always got a bunch of altcoin he's loving in his back pocket. Maybe you have one that you're loving out there you want to let us know about. Go over there, add Options, let us know. It should be pinned. If it's not pinned, we'll retweet it throughout the week so you folks can find it out there. But that's going to do it for us on the show this week. I want to thank all of you out there who joined us. Of course, I want to thank all of our friends who are joining us out there in the pro as well. Love to see the new names joining us here a week after week. Congratulations again to P05, who just won last week's Pro Trading Crate. You want to get your name in the hat? You want to get access to exclusive shows like tomorrow's Pro Q&A session with the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi. Maybe we can twist his arm and talk a little bit about crypto. I know a lot of his students love Bitto, so I'm sure he can talk about that one as well. But if you have questions, it's up to you folks what you want to ask him. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to sign up, get your name in the hat. You can win the fabulous prizes. You can ask questions of the Pro Q&As. You can join and listen to the Options Oddity show we do at the end of every week. Of course, live access to all the other shows we do here on the network. And a whole bunch of fun. Just like I said, 200 plus hours worth of content already waiting for you on that feed. Check it out. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. Speaking of you pro folks, back again tomorrow with the Pro Q&A session with the Rock Lobster himself. Then Education Wednesday coming at you hot and heavy. Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio on Wednesday. Thursday, back with the Flow Master and his compatriots over there on the Option Block, as well as This Week in Futures Options. After that show, we also delve into crypto, obviously on the CME side. So if you want more crypto in your life, This Week in Futures Options, a great show for you folks to check out over there. Friday, Volatility Views, and then for all you pro folks, Options Oddities. And back again next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.